What's good, everyone? It's your boy Nazi with another video for the channel. Welcome back to DMV Sports Zone. I got my boy Abdullah here, of course, our co-host, and the one and only Chris Baker, otherwise known as Swaggy, one of our favorite players growing up, man. Just watching you rush the passer, stop the run. It's a true honor to have you on the stream, bro. And yeah, the first question I want to ask you, because I know, we did start off a little bit later, but I don't know if you want to get into this, but Chris was doing some great work in the community, guys. So there's definitely a great excuse for just starting off the stream a little bit later. But first question we want to ask you, can you talk a little bit about your journey to the NFL and how you felt after being placed on the practice squad and active roster for Washington in 2011?
Oh man, my journey was crazy, bro. Coming out of college, I went to Penn State first, and I did 3 years at Penn State, and then I got kicked out of Penn State and went to Hampton, and I went to Hampton for about a semester, and after Hampton, I was a Black College All-American, and I turned in my draft grade, and I got like a third-round draft grade from the NFL. So the advice that I was getting at the time, they were saying anytime you get like a third-round draft grade, more than likely they grade you a round or two lower than what they actually expect you to go. So I was like, shit, if I got a third-round draft grade, even if I go worst-case scenario, third round, it's still better than what I'm dealing with in college with no money and, just not being able to support myself. So I was just like, I'm going to take my chances. And plus, being at Hampton, I love Hampton. They gave me another opportunity, but it was so much of an adjustment coming from Penn State. Penn State is state of the art. Everything is pretty much better than I would say 80 or 90% of NFL locker room. So coming from that and then going to Hampton was like going to high school. So it was like a difficult adjustment for me because that's what I was always used to. Would I have done another year at Hampton if I was more comfortable with the situation? Maybe. But I knew the type of person I was, and I knew the type of environment that I had to be around in order for me to succeed. And I just didn't feel at that time Hampton would have helped me progress to becoming a better football player after the semester that I played there. So I decided to leave early for the draft. I did really good in the whole draft process, and everything was going right. I got invited to the combine, so I'm like, man, this is perfect. And then I performed well at the combine, weighed in at 326, had the highest vertical for defensive tackles at 35.5 inches. I think I ran a 4.940 or a 5.1. So it was something like that. It was something good. Had a good broad jump. So all my stuff was like lining up for me to get drafted. So, I'm going through the whole draft. Of course, the anticipation of getting drafted, I'm always looking at all the little mock drafts and stuff. And all of the mock drafts had me going in the third round, second round. Some of them had me going in the first round. So I'm like, man, I know I'm going to get drafted somewhere. So draft day comes around, and it was one of the most disappointing things ever, bro, because I had a whole little draft party at my house. Everyone was invited from the neighborhood, and everyone's expecting me to get drafted. And we had a party for 2 days, thinking that I was going to get drafted. And, round after round just went by, and I never got any phone calls. And it was one of the most disappointing points in my life because I left college early. I didn't graduate. And now I'm sitting back like, damn, did I make the right decision of going to the NFL? Should I have stayed in college? Like, all this stuff is, like, going through my mind. And I remember on draft day just crying and leaving the party and my dad walking down the street with me. And then we went back into the house, and he was just telling me how much he loved me and he still support me no matter what happens. And then right after the draft was over, I got 3 phone calls. I believe it was from Mike Tomlin of the Pittsburgh Steelers, somebody from whoever the Carolina Panthers coach was at the time, and Denver. And when I looked at all the rosters, Denver really didn't have any marquee players that was like sketched in the starting lineup. So I felt like, hey, if I'm going to be an undrafted guy, then I probably have my best chances of making a team in Denver. And they offered me the most money as an undrafted free agent. So I was like, I'm going to go where the money is and where I have opportunity to play.
Yeah.
So I went to Denver. It was Josh McDaniels' first year. I started off, fourth or third or fourth on the depth chart. And that was the first time in my life where I started at the bottom of the depth chart. So that in itself was a huge adjustment. And then when I got into the league, it was like they gave us all this free food, and they fed us breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then when we had practice, being that you're at the bottom of the depth chart, I wasn't really getting any reps. So like my first 2 weeks, I gained like 15 pounds because I was eating good, but I wasn't practicing or sweating off enough in order to keep my weight down. But every time I got in, I always did something good, and the coach was like, "Oh shit, this guy's pretty good. Like, let's keep giving him more opportunities." And so by the second week of camp in my rookie year as an undrafted free agent, I was second team base, second team big nickel, first team goal line. So I'm like, man, this is perfect. Like, how does this work out? Like I'm balling in preseason. Every time I get an opportunity, I had a couple sacks in the preseason, so I was like on a high. And as an undrafted free agent, it's kind of nerve-wracking because you really don't understand how the NFL works. And the NFL is like a cutthroat business. And as an undrafted free agent, you see so many people coming and going every day. And so it's always like, hey, are they going to cut me? Did I do something wrong? Did I do good enough for them to keep me? So those thoughts are always in your mind. Are they going to cut me? When are they going to cut me? Those thoughts are always in your mind every single week of practice. And so I always just try my best just to play as hard as I could in practice and in the preseason game to show these coaches that, hey, this isn't one of the guys that you need to think about cutting. And so that preseason, I performed well. Like I said, I was on the second team base, second team big nickel, first team goal line. So I'm like, hey, I'm definitely going to make this team. And the fourth game is normally like the game for all the undrafted guys or guys that's on the bubble to play a lot. So all guys kept talking about was, man, don't be worried about how much you play early because when that fourth preseason comes, it's all yours. That's your whole game. And I was like, damn, that's going to be crazy. I ain't got no substitution for the whole game. Like how am I to make it through this? But surprisingly, when the fourth game came, I barely played. I played like maybe the first quarter and a half. And then I was on the sideline with my hat on. And all the vets was like, well, congratulations, Bake. You must have made the team because you undrafted and they got you out the game in the fourth preseason game. You did something right. And I'm like, oh, shit. Well, but I couldn't believe it until it actually happened. You know what I mean? Because whatever they call it, Black Friday or whatever it is in the league when everybody gets cut, I was still waiting for that day. I needed to know officially, hey, you made this team because you just never know what can go down in this NFL. So that was nerve-wracking. I wound up making the team as an undrafted free agent, but I still was unsatisfied because even though I made the team and I was making good money on the active roster, I never played. So that was frustrating. You know what I mean? I was always on the active roster, but I never made the 48 or whatever that's dressed up for game day. And so that in itself was like very frustrating for me. I wound up playing only one game my rookie year against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and our starting nose tackle was hurt. So I'm figuring I'm about to get a lot of playing time. I wound up only getting like 8 plays, if that. You know what I mean? So I was like, man, what the hell is this? Like, this NFL stuff is crazy. So then my second year come around in the league, I'm still in Denver. I wound up getting a concussion, and like I did my rookie year, I performed well in the preseason, and I couldn't grasp the business side of the NFL at this point because at the end of my rookie season, they told me to come back and compete with Ron Fields, who was our starting nose tackle at the time. And next year, I should be able to compete for a starting role in his team. And at the time, my defensive line coach was Wayne Nunley. He just passed away probably like last year. But he was my first defensive line coach. And he always talked about Jamal Williams because I played nose tackle my rookie year. And I will always watch film on Jamal Williams from San Diego. He was one of the best nose tackles in NFL history, man. He was phenomenal when he played with San Diego. And so our defensive line coach, Wayne Nunley, was his coach. So I would always watch film on how to play nose tackle through Vince Wilfork and Jamal Williams. That next offseason, when I was supposed to be competing with Ron for the starting position, we signed Jamal Williams. And I'm like, oh, shit. Like, now I'm back to behind the guy who already started in front of me and Jamal Williams, who's just the coach's guy. So I started, like, feeling myself. And instead of, like, working as hard as I could, you know, I was like, man, my preseason game is good enough, you know, like, if they don't want me, somebody else will. You know, I just wasn't being a good professional, but I really didn't know how to handle that type of adversity when I was faced with it in my second year. So wound up catching a concussion, and then they wound up releasing me like a week later. But I'm like, all right, I'm going to get picked up immediately. And lo and behold, no teams called me. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like 1 year in the NFL, now I'm done. So I wound up going back home. You know, I blew through my finances from my first year and a half. Well, my first year. So I go back home pretty much broke. And I wound up playing for some, I don't even know what league it was, but it was called the Hartford Colonial team. I don't know what league it was in. But I was there, but I was very uncomfortable because it was almost like a Hampton situation where you go from the NFL and then you go to some other league, and it's like, what the hell? Like, I don't belong here. Like, something's not right. You know what I'm saying? I don't even feel comfortable here. I know I'm better than these guys. They got me backing up some people who never would even make an NFL roster. I'm like, this is crazy, you know? So I only lasted there about a week and a half, but I was so nervous because they wound up releasing me, which I was happy about. But then I was like, damn, if I just got cut from the Hartford Colonials, what NFL team is going to want to pick me up? So I'm like, I'm going through it. Like, what the hell is about to happen, bro? Like, did I make the right decision of leaving college? Like, I'm stressed out. So I wound up going to church on Bible study, and it was around the time of my birthday. And I met this prophet at the church, and he started praying over me and my parents. And he called my name out. He called my address. I'm like, how does this man know all this stuff? But if you go to church and you know about prophets, man, they can see into the future and speak things into your life. So I met this prophet that night. He was like, when you go home, make sure you pray to God. And when you pray to him, ask him what you want. Like, tell him what you want, and God is going to honor your prayers. And so my birthday was coming up. I was like, Lord, I don't know what I did to be in this position, but I don't want any presents for my birthday. I don't want anything. All I want is another shot to play football. And lo and behold, on my birthday, Miami Dolphins called me. So they called me and signed me to their practice squad. So I go to Miami for my second year in the NFL to play, and I was on a practice squad then, but I was still unsatisfied because I'm used to getting active squad checks. You know what I mean? Now I'm going to practice squad checks. That's half of what I was making on an active. So I'm like, damn, I'm happy to have a job, but I ain't getting my active checks. I need to be active. Like, how do I get on this active squad? So, you know, I'm busting my ass all year in practice, and a couple of guys wound up getting hurt on the defensive line, so I got activated, and I played one game that year against the Oakland Raiders. Had a really good game, had a forced fumble, a couple tackles. I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, I could do this NFL thing. And next thing you know, I was inactive for like the rest of the season. I'm like, how does this work? So that offseason ends. This is when we had the lockout. So the NFL lockout happened. And as I'm training on my own through the NFL lockout, I wound up having knee issues. I'm like, something's wrong with my knee. So I talked to my agent. He worked it out with the team people so that I go to Dr. Andrews to get scope surgery. I needed to get scope surgery on my left knee. So I get the scope surgery on my left knee, and I'm rehabbing and training in Miami with the Dolphins at the time. And, you know, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do as far as rehab and what the doctors are telling me to do. I get a call from the GM. He says, Bake, come to my office. So I go to Jeff Ireland's office, and he sits down and says, hey, Bake, you have a real opportunity to earn a spot on this team. Continue to keep working your ass off, and when it's your time to shine in the preseason, you will have the opportunity to earn a spot on this team. So I call home to my mom and dad. I'm like super excited, like, Mom, Dad, the GM just called me. I got a shot to make this team. I just got to continue to, you know, get my knee right, and, you know, I'll be good. The next day, We still had the same defensive coordinator because my defensive coordinator was Mike Nolan. He went from Denver. After he left Denver, he went to Miami. So as I'm down there, I'm getting up for rehab in the morning. It's like 6 in the morning, 6:30.
You muted or you lost connection?
We might have lost connection, Chris. Oh, can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, we can hear you.
All right, Nadi, I gotta head out though. So,
Oh.
yeah.
All
Okay,
right.
so
So,
Abdullah, our co-host, has to
I
head
see
out, but
Ron
Yeah.
Fields, who was the nose tackle from Denver.
Yep.
So I'm like, oh God, here we go again. So after Ron comes and I see him that morning, I go to the facility. You know, I go through camp, my camp day like a normal day. I do my rehab. I do everything I'm supposed to do at practice.
Yeah.
Once I get into after practice, I go into the like the cold tub, warm tub area where you do all your recovery and stretching and all that stuff. I go in there and all of a sudden the clipboard man comes. I'm like, what? Like the GM just talked to me yesterday. Like, how in the hell is the clipboard man? But I'm like in denial. I'm like, maybe they just want to see me upstairs. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on. So I go upstairs to the office. Jeff Iron doesn't meet me. Some other guy meets me in the office. Like, hey, Baker, we're going to release you. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, y'all just told me yesterday to continue to work hard and I'll earn a spot on this team. So I was crushed, bro. Like, I was the probably the one and only time I really cried after getting cut because that one just hurt me to the core because I'm like, damn, you just told me that I had a shot at making this team. So they cut me and I'm just living in Miami, just chilling. And I go to church again and I'm like, Lord, let me get back into the league. And, as an undrafted guy, you don't pray for people's injuries, but you kind of know, like, if someone gets injured, then that's how you're going to get your opportunity to play. So I was literally just watching the preseason games just to see if any players would get hurt. And I just happened to be watching the Washington Redskins at the time and Baltimore play in the preseason. And once I watched that game, Jarvis Jenkins tore his ACL his rookie year. So I called my agent like, yo, a defensive lineman from Washington just went down. Call Washington to see if they need somebody to play. So I go to church the next day and I was praying and I was like, Lord, just give me another opportunity. While I'm at church, my agent calls me like, babe, where you at? I'm like, I'm at church. He was like, well, you must have said a good prayer at church because the Redskins just called and they want you to fly out tomorrow. So I literally left church, packed up as many clothes as I could pack up, and just flew to Washington. And I went out there and I was nervous because, as I told you, I was still rehabbing from my injury in Miami. So I haven't gotten to the point of my rehab where I was like training on grass and really working out that much outside of just doing light cuts here, just little bit here and there. So my first time on grass, like working out for my knee surgery, was when I worked out for the Skins at my workout. And it was like Jim Haslett, Coach Bernie, Bruce Allen, like all the decision makers for Washington.
Yeah.
They came and watched me work out for the practice squad or for the team. And so they wound up signing me to the practice squad. Again, I'm happy to be back in the league, but I'm like, here we go again with this practice squad shit. So I kept working my ass off. Coach Shanahan was our coach at the time, and like every week I would do well in practice, and I couldn't understand why it wasn't activating me. So I would go to Coach Shanahan like damn near every week, like, Coach, did I do enough to get activated this week? Like, what else do I have to show you? And our defensive line coach was like, Chris, Shanahan watches every single piece of tape that happens at practice. If you're doing something well, he's going to know. Stop going to his office and asking him when you're going to play, because that is just going to happen whenever he sees fit. There's nothing that you're doing that he doesn't see because he watches everything. So I'm like, all right, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not going to say anything to Shanahan. Whenever they activate me, I'm just going to be ready to play. So I just kept doing what I do, just practice as hard as I could against our starters and try to whip their ass, every day in practice. And hopefully that makes them better, but at the same time, let these coaches know that, hey, Chris can play.
Yeah.
So everything was working out in my favor. I did everything in practice I was supposed to do. I worked my butt off, and now my opportunity comes. They call me in on Monday or Tuesday. I get activated to the active squad, and at this time we didn't have a bubble, so there was no indoor facility for us to work out. So we would work out at 24-hour fitness if there was inclement weather. So this time it was a rainy day. We all went into the gym, and a bunch of guys were in the gym dunking at basketball before practice and stuff. And I've been a basketball player my whole life. So I'm like, all right, let me show these boys I got some hops too. I was like, yo, throw me an alley-oop. I go to jump for the alley-oop and tear my quad the next day after getting activated. When you talk about, like, being pissed, bro, I was pissed. Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Because I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me? Sorry, guys. Oh. Can you hear me now?
I can't hear anything you're saying.
Oh, no. Sorry, guys. Dealing with tech issues right now. But how cool was that? I'm getting to hear Chris's journey. All right, so I think he's back.
We good?
Yeah, can you hear me?
All right, yeah, I can hear you now.
All right. So
All right,
I was just saying that it's great to hear about your journey. But go ahead. Sorry.
So I tear my quad trying to dunk a basketball literally the day after I got activated, and it was like, I'm like, all right, I guess my NFL career is over. Like, there's no way that I'm going to make it back onto a team after tearing my quad doing something non-football. But by God's grace, they didn't cut me, and no one could figure out really how I tore my quad, so they just never cut me. So I had surgery again with Dr. Andrews, and I wound up going in for quad surgery, so they repaired my quad and they did a scope surgery. So that offseason, me and Jarvis pretty much rehabbed together and just worked our asses off and was like, hey, we're going to come back and do our thing in the preseason. And that preseason was the year I was competing for the backup nose tackle position with Chris Neal. And I had worked my ass off that whole preseason, and I don't know, like how something just clicks for you? Like, everything really clicked for me that camp. And I was just tearing stuff up, man. That whole camp, I was, always one of those people who was always on the reports of people who showed out at practice or the stars of practice. I was always on that list, because I just kept performing. So that was my first year being a backup. And then, I was still frustrated because even though I was a backup, I still wanted to start. You know what I mean? Just a competitor in me. And I felt like I was better than some of the people who we had playing. But, that's just me being a competitor. And like that whole year, I wound up just being a backup to Barry, but that was the most playing time I've had since I've been in the NFL. So I was like super happy. Then I wound up getting tendered by the Redskins. I got tendered. I was on like a little 1-year deal, and I think like the second or third game in, Barry had got hurt. I think he tore his pec or something. Versus the Texans, I believe. So then I wound up starting. No, I didn't start. I think they put Kedrick in the start. So this is why I was like getting frustrated. They had put Kedrick in the start, and then they had Jarvis playing at defensive end, and I forgot who our other defensive end was at the time. And so I'm like, bro, I know I could start at one of these positions, either in or nose tackle. So, each week they would just practice me at end and nose tackle because they knew I was athletic enough to play end and strong enough to play nose. So I kind of got good at both. It was like, it don't matter where y'all play me at. As long as I'm playing, I don't really care. So I was backing up the nose and the end. But I'm like, I'm good enough to start. You know what I mean? Like, why don't y'all start me? And so for 3 weeks in a row, Hazlitt and them put me in the starting lineup on like a Wednesday. I would be in the starting lineup. I'll go with the ones all all week on Wednesday, Thursday, and then on Friday, like something from like I may have made like one mistake on Thursday practice, and then all of a sudden on Friday I wasn't starting anymore. So I was like crushed. I'm like, yo, this is my week. I'm about to start. And then on Friday, all of a sudden I'm not starting. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is crazy. Like, I was just, my hopes would be so high at the beginning of the week, and the end of the week it would be so low. And I felt like I practiced good. Like, I didn't do anything to be like, oh, we don't need to start him because he made this mistake. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So week by week, 3 weeks in a row, they did that to me. And I got to the point where it was like, it was frustrating me so point I didn't even want to talk to my teammates. And I didn't want to really, I really didn't want to talk to anybody because I'm like, bro, like, I'm good enough to play, to start. Not even long play, I'm good enough to start. You know what I mean? So then their first time giving me a start was the Atlanta week. We played the Atlanta Falcons, and they did the same thing to me again. It was like, oh, Baker's starting on Wednesday. I'm like, oh, whatever, bro. Like, at this point, it's just whatever. If I'm going to start, I'm going to start. If not, just stop fucking telling me I'm about to start if you're not going to start me. So the Atlanta game, they did the same shit. Good day, a good week in practice. But this week, they didn't necessarily take me out of the starting lineup, but they kind of just had me in limbo where me and Kedrick or me and Jarvis were splitting reps type of thing. You know what I mean? So I do like our normal routine when we have like our team meetings and stuff. And some just said, yo, go to the team meeting early today. So it was a team meeting for the Atlanta game at the hotel when we do our defensive walkthrough. And Hazlitt happened to be walking there early too. He was like, Bate. I was like, what up, man? He was like, you ready to start? I'm like, bro, I've been ready to start 3 weeks ago. He was like, well, you're going to start this week. Don't let me down. And those last 3 games in the year, I played so well because I remember me and Perry were talking about, hey, we're going to be free agents, so it's time for us to ball so we don't have to leave here. So me and Perry, like, balled out. And that's when I got my first deal with Washington, got a 3-year deal. Yeah. And then each year I just got better and better. And then I won the MVP of our defense. And, you know, it was just a story. You know, it was like, it was the best thing ever. You know, I love Washington, D.C. You know, I love the area.
We love you back.
Oh, man. And my career just kind of, you know, just took off from there.
I appreciate that. It was really cool getting to hear your journey into the NFL and journey here to DC. Next question I want to ask you is in regards to what I think a lot of people most know you for, and that is, you know, being a pivotal part of the defense on the 2015 NFC East, winning Washington Redskins at the time. I just want your thoughts on this. Can you take us into that season really quickly too, because I know we have a couple more questions to ask you, but can you talk a little bit more about that season, what that was like, how the city sort of like was galvanized around the team, and also if you remember any differences between that team and maybe even the RG3 led team of 2012, if you could touch on that as well in short order.
Yeah, well, I remember that year because it was the year I had got married. And then I had got my best friend, Big Pot Roast, to come play with me.
Yeah.
And that was like, that whole off season was so crazy for me because I was going into that year supposed to be the starting nose tackle. But then I was like, I really don't want to play nose. I want to play end. I'm better at end.
Yeah.
So I know I could start at left end in our 3-4 defense. So I was like, let me go get Terrence so that way he could just play nose.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go out and get freaking Stephen Paya and pay him all his money. I was like, bro, there's no way this dude is taking my position. Like, I didn't bring Terrence here to back him up. I brought him here so me and him could play side by side. And me and Paya went at it, you know, all camp, all preseason. And in my opinion, and anybody else who watches football, there was no competition between me and Paya. You know what I'm saying? It was clear cut that I was the better player. I was just on. It was just my time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we had a first-time NFL head coach, Coach Akey, and I'd rather someone just be straight up with me rather than beat around the bush and lie. And we had a room full of veterans, so it was like, bro, you don't have to lie to us. Just tell us the fucking truth.
Yeah.
And he just kept telling me, oh, you and Paya are co-starters. I'm like, bro, there's no fucking thing as a fucking co-starter. Like, if someone's introduced on a defense, it's not going to say Chris Baker and Stephen Pye. It's going to say Chris Baker or Stephen Pye. Like, we're not fucking co-starters, so stop saying it. And it made it like super awkward and uncomfortable for him in our meeting rooms as our defensive line coach, because it was like, bro, everyone is seeing the same film and everyone knows that Chris should be starting. There's no reason why they should be splitting time. But, the business side of the NFL, they paid this man money, so I guess they had to start him. So in the first 3 games of that year, they started him instead of me. And I'm like, bro, like, how the hell are we co-starters? I go to Gruden. I'm like, bro, you said you wanted the best 11 on the field. Why the hell am I not on the field? He's like, you're not starting, Vic? I'm like, bro, you the fucking head coach. What you mean you don't know if I'm not starting, bro? Like, what the hell? So he was like, you know what? All right, cool, Vic. You're going to start this next game. And I started against the Eagles, and I had that 2-sack game at home. And that whole year just – it was magical for me. You know what I'm saying? It was all the stuff I knew I can do. I just needed the opportunity to go out there and do it, and I finally had the opportunity to do it. And I just remember that season just being, we had so many ups and downs where it's like, hey, we may have like a 2 or 3 game losing streak, then we might lose 4 in a row. But then we just found a way to finish that season and get into the championship. I believe we had the game-clinching win against the Philadelphia Eagles. And then we had to play Dallas the week after. And I had 1 more sack to get that year to activate my sack bonus. I needed 6 sacks. And so we had already clinched the playoff in Atlanta. And then we played in Atlanta. And I played in – we played Dallas the next week. And I played in that game. And the goal was just to play until I get my sack. So I wound up getting my sack, like, I don't know, like in the middle of the 3rd quarter. I was like so happy. I was like, oh, I get to get out of the game now. I finally got the sack. And now he's the freaking offensive coordinator for Dallas, Kellen Moore.
Yeah.
So that year was just crazy because after that Philadelphia game when we, clinched the NFC East, when we got back to, what do you call it, Redskins Park?
Mm-hmm.
When we got back there, that whole parking lot was full of fans. It was almost like we just won the damn Super Bowl. And all we did was clinch the NFC East, and it was like the best feeling ever. Everywhere we went out to eat, we would run up a nice tab for food and drinks, and they'd be like, hey, don't worry about it. Just leave a tip. I'm like, what? Like, it was like the best thing ever. We felt like rock stars. It was like amazing. And then the same thing with the RG3 year. It was anytime you could, find a way to make it to the playoffs is always something that you're going to remember because making it to the playoffs is just that hard to do in the NFL. So many guys make it through their whole NFL career without even, sniffing the playoffs. So I was,
especially
happy
here in
to
DC, right? We've only made it 3 times in the last 9 years. So
and I was a part of 2 of them. So I'm happy about it. So, we made it to the playoffs that year. And then the RG3 year was just so magical because what we had to pull off was just like unheard of. We had to win 7 or 8 games and we couldn't lose. Like we could not lose a game. And we found a way to just win every single one of those games. So that was just special in itself. And I wish it would have ended different because we definitely had Seattle beat and then RG3 just got hurt and we couldn't move the ball. It was up like 17-0. I'm like, oh, he's whooping Seattle ass. And next thing you know, touchdown. Like, oh shit. But we had good times, man. Both of those seasons were very magical, and they all have their own bright spots within themselves. But I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Okay, and those were really exciting years here at DC, obviously. But I mean, moving on from like the past, right, and moving on to like the current state of this team now. I mean, there's been a lot of changes since you've last been here. Obviously, like the name has changed. Now we're the Washington football team. Last year, we won the division at 7-9 behind Ron Rivera and that defense. What are your thoughts on the team's performance thus far this season? From the defense to Taylor Heineke, Terry McLaurin, and how far off do you think they are from potentially vying for another NFC East division championship or even long playoff run? How far off do you think they are from that?
This season has been so full of ups and downs. It's like we could lose to a sorry team and then go out and beat the damn Buccaneers. It's like, what team is going to show up this week, But when our team is rolling, man, we're rolling. And, our defense is really playing really good, even though, Chase Young is out and Sweat is out. Even the guys who stepped up, our interior guys are so good. It kind of eliminates the the fact that we don't have outside ends at the caliber that we started the year off with. Because like I said before, this may even help our defense because even though Chase Young is great and Sweat is really good, they're going to do their own thing. Now you have guys in there that are going to do exactly what the play calls. And now there's going to be a lot more discipline rushing. As you can see, guys aren't really out there freestyling and losing contain as much. Now the interior guys are really, kicking the inside ass and making sacks. And now that quarterback has nowhere to go because no one's not freestyling. So it actually kind of helped us out. But I was also, very glad to see our defense mix in some blitzes because we were so infatuated with how good our front four, front five is that when teams had, locked us down or prevented us from really rushing the passer, we never adjusted to like send extra blitzers. But what people really don't understand is like it's hard to get sacks when you're playing from behind or it's an even game. You know what I mean? Like if you play with the lead, now you can pin your ears back and rush. So that's why guys are like, hey, Chase Young don't have any sacks. Well, Chase Young isn't really playing with the lead. You know what I mean? Like, and granted, that's not an excuse not to get sacks, but sacks come when you have to rush the passer. And there's never times in a game where it's like, all right, this is rush down. Because at that time, maybe 3rd and 11, 30 plus, they might be throwing the screen and getting rid of the ball quick. You know what I mean? But, our offense has been doing well. And I've always said this from the beginning of the year that I like Taylor Heineke in more of a hurry-up offense pace because he just – I don't know. It's just something about when it's must-have-it, got-to-win situations, he just finds a way to perform and make the plays that you're supposed to make. And every time you put him in those situations where he got to have it, we got to have it first down, he did well in those. So I'm like, why don't we do this shit the whole game? And it was, really good to see him really make on-time throws, make the right throws. Even when he scrambled and was like impromptu, he made the right plays. So it was good to see our offense make the plays that we're supposed to make. And anytime you could throw the ball to Scary Terry, he just finds a way to come up with it because I swear to you, watching the games, you're like, no, bad throw. Oh, shit, Gary Kratz. You know what I mean? But it's always like that. He comes down with it. He finds a way to come down with the ball. And so as long as he's coming down with the ball, I'm not going to complain. I still would like to see our run game get a little bit more efficient and let us use it more. And then our play calling get a little bit better in the red zone. I just feel like we're too vanilla. Like when we run the ball, there are no motions. And if there is a motion, it's just a pointless motion. Then we just run like a simple inside zone 2 times and then have to throw it on 3rd down and put all the pressure on Heineke. But he's been able to make those throws the last couple of weeks, and hopefully that trend will continue so we could just get rolling on a 4, 5, 6 game win streak because, like I told everyone, most of the teams are getting hurt right now. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like Washington is pretty much getting healthy outside of the fact that we lost, 2 defensive ends, but for the most part, we're not that damaged. You know what I mean? But everyone in the NFL is dealing with injuries, so it's just a matter of the front office bringing in the right guys to build depth around the team because we're expecting injuries to happen. It's the NFL; you're expected to get injured, so it just speaks to the quality of backups that we have. Even our linebackers are playing a lot better. The Tampa game was probably the best I've seen both of our linebackers play. And everything is just starting to click. Our DBs were in the right place at the right time, was getting pressure, was making Brady throw off target and get off the spot. And then we did the same thing with Cam. He had some really good read option plays where I felt like we were just undisciplined, but I'm not sure of what the zone read rules were. But normally when you have a 3 technique to your side, the defensive end is responsible for the quarterback. And I believe when he broke for that long touchdown, our defensive end crashed down on the dive instead of taking the quarterback. So we just have to be disciplined each and every down and just continue to find a way to win. It doesn't have to be pretty, but we just have to find a way. And our team is really gritty. Our offensive line is looking good. Even through all the injuries that we've had on there, we played with 3 centers last game, but we just found a way to win and move the ball and drive the ball down to people's throat. And if we could continue to be hungry and make those type of plays, the sky's the limit, we still have the whole division to play. We only play one division game, so we have the whole division to play. Dallas is getting hurt. The injury bug is catching them now. So now is a good time, you know, to beat them while they're down, and hopefully they go into December in worse position than here and now, and we could run away with this division because the Giants looked terrible last night.
They did, and I mean the Eagles are looking pretty good, but
they kind of have like the Redskins. I mean, the Washington football story is like one minute they look like a great team, and the next minute they look like one of the worst teams in the NFC East. So you just don't know what team you're going to get.
That's so true. The last question I want to ask you, Swaggy, before we finish this stream is so obviously you were a fan favorite because of your play on the field and how you embrace the community. A part of that embrace of the community was your love for the other DC sports teams, right? Like the Wizards, the Caps, and even beyond your playing days, you've oftentimes tweeted during their games and just tweeted your support for them. How cool has it been to see the other DC teams doing well, especially the Wizards this year, who were leading the Eastern Conference, and I think are second in the East right now, and obviously the Caps, who continue to do well. How cool has it been to see those two teams?
Man, it's always great. You know, I'm waiting for the day when all three sports teams can do great at the same time, because DC just becomes a better place. You know, becomes a better place to party, hang out. You know, like the love is like amazing. You know, people don't really understand how much people really love the Washington football team, and when we're doing good, it just helps everything out in all of the DMV. You know what I mean? The Caps are doing really well. You know, that's what we expect. And then, you know, no one, I don't care who you are, no one expected the Wizards to be this freaking good. You know what I mean? And I am so happy to see Bradley Beal and the rest of those guys really go out there and compete at a high level, and hopefully they can stay healthy and continue this on, you know, all season. But, you know, DC is a better place when all three teams are doing good. And right now, our hockey team and our basketball team is doing very well, and the football team is on a 2-game winning streak. So hopefully, you know, we all can just, you know, continue to win and make DC a happy place and make everyone happy. And hopefully we could get a really good winning streak with our football team, so we can have some type of postseason success, because that's what we're missing outside of the Caps. We're missing postseason success.
And the Nationals, right? A couple years
and the
ago,
Nationals. They just won the World Series a couple years ago. So, you know, we're just missing that last plug-in with the Washington football team making that next step and winning some playoff games and getting back to the big dance.
For sure. Swaggy, I appreciate your time on this. We eventually got this live stream done, and again, it's been an honor. You were one of my favorites, and Abdullah, he had to drop off, but one of his favorites as well growing up. So it's really cool to get this chance to interview you. Thank you guys, everyone in the chat, for joining. Jacob, Fight for Old DC, School Viking, and Mr. Royston, who also asked how's Pot Roast doing. I don't know if you saw that comment.
He's doing good, man. He's doing real good, bro. He's actually the assistant D-line coach for the Carolina Panthers, and he's the quality control coach there. So, you know, this was one of those weeks where it was like, I hope you do well, but, you know, Washington's going to kick that ass, you know.
I have one of my friends who I told the same thing. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Again, thank you so much for joining, and best wishes. Have a happy Thanksgiving. I know you're doing great work, and
Yes, sir.
we'll see you when we see you.
You guys do the same. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
All right, peace out.
Swaggy out.